everybody, and welcome to a classified wild ride with Steve-O. We are going to the other side, baby, talking about aliens and UFOs, and my most important question is, why does anybody care? Seriously, to the layman, like, what does this matter? Can we talk in terms that matter? And that's what we did, and I think that's why we might have had the most gripping, entertainment, palatable episode that we possibly could have had with Jeremy Corbell. What can I say, baby? It doesn't get wilder than this ride. And we've got a guest host. So strap on and let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeremy Corbell. Yeah, dude.
What's up, Steve-O?
All right, man.
And special guests.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We have a special guest co-host, Mr. Oliver Tree.
It is my honor to be here. Big time fan, Jeremy.
What's up, Oliver?
Pleasure.
Nice to meet you, man.
And
Nice to meet
you
you as
met Scott Randolph.
That's right.
What's up, man?
This is an unusual setup, but we're talking about unusual things. And, of course, you're, is it safe to say you're the world's foremost UFO expert?
I certainly hope not. I sincerely fucking hope not. Yeah. So, I think that there's a lot of people that have been working on this issue for a long time. Probably the least likely candidate to be, kind of so deep into this. I didn't think I'd ever be professionally studying UFOs or whatever the hell you say. But, right tool for the right job. People say I'm a tool, so there you go.
Now, you claim yourself to be a journalist.
I do that for self-defense, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did journalism precede the UFO?
Yeah, the fascination with this unknown,
Yeah.
bizarre phenomenon. No, not at all. I was a martial athlete. I started training jiu-jitsu when I was a young kid, boxing, wrestling, all that stuff.
Nice.
And I thought that's all I'd ever do for my whole life, And then you get injured really bad at some point and you can't do the same stuff. So transition from that to fine art, which was, again, total imposter syndrome. I can't draw a stick figure. But that started for me. I kind of got into that. But the whole time along, I was interested in UFOs, like the nuts and bolts, the hardcore physical craft, the idea. And then the journalism thing was I just pestered this guy fucking over and over. His name's George motherfucking Knapp. He's an investigative reporter out of Las Vegas, Nevada. And I figured he, if anybody, knew what the fuck was up, what was true, what was not true, a good starting point. So he ghosted me for like 2 years. And then finally I got through to him. And, he kind of mentored me now for over a decade. So the title of journalist was bestowed upon me by the public. So I'll accept it because it provides me additional coverage in a way. I am reporting the news. I am breaking news, but I never thought of myself like that, never studied journalism, but I learned from the best. So that's kind of... And in between that, I made movies about UFOs, it was also unexpected, like the Bob Lazar movie.
Right.
And so that kind of thrust me into a position where people were confiding in me things that they hadn't told their families, hadn't told their children, haven't even whispered to their dogs, it's like...
Right.
So kind of accidental journalist.
But the first movies that you made it on Netflix.
Yeah, fucking insane, right?
I mean, you have 3 movies on Netflix, right?
So 2 on Netflix, 1 on Hulu, and now they're kind of everywhere because I took them off the platform. So, look, here's the deal, man. I figured that I would just try, and so I just made a movie. And to my utter astonishment, it got picked up on Netflix and went wild. And that was before the Lazar film. It's called Patient 17.
Yeah.
So I figured, well, if it's that easy, keep it up. I think I got real lucky, and hopefully I made good films.
Yeah, how long did that take you to make the first movie?
It's funny, man. When you say you make a movie like a documentary, a lot of people got a plan. So they're like, I start now, I get funding, I do that. Nah, dude. I had a camera that I got for my wedding, and I started pointing it at people and realized they would spill the fucking beans. And so it was at that moment I said, well, I should learn to edit. So I started putting it all together. And if you add up all the time of the first shot and all that stuff, I mean, it takes years. For me, I'm probably not the best. There's probably people that are way more efficient than me. But I would say like the Lazar film, the third film I did, I mean, that took maybe 9 years from inception because I didn't know if he would do the film with me.
Yeah.
So, man, I don't know. I'm doing it all the wrong ways, but they're coming out. These are, movies about this topic. Yeah.
Yeah, UFO people are kind of kooky. So they come out of the woodworks. What's your bullshit radar for knowing what's truth or what's not?
Super tuned in, I hope. I mean, I don't know. Like, look, I kind of accept, I'm an equal opportunity employer. Like, accept all information. And then if I can prove it, that's solid. If I can't, it sits all the way over there. When you say UFO people are kooky, man, everybody's fucking kooky. There are kooky people in every industry. It's just that this topic is so outside of our consensus reality that you just end up, sometimes you lose your marbles by keeping your ears open. And I notice that. Marbles rolling out right and left. People get a little touched. UFO disease. And I think it's because it's an exciting topic. And separating that fact from what we want to be true, that fantasy, that can be hard existentially. Just you want things to be true when they're not, when you can't prove them. So I don't know. The bullshit meter is long-term vetting of individuals with extraordinary claims based on extraordinary beliefs. Long-term. I mean, I piss everybody off, even the people that come to me. They're like, "Well, I thought you were going to integrate this information." I'm like, "Well, it's only been 5 years. I have to get to know you, make sure that this is not a long con."
Okay. Very recently, and seemingly only recently, has the government acknowledged the existence of UFOs. They're real.
Yeah.
And that is objectively incredible. But what I find more incredible is the fact that when the government comes out and says UFOs are real, seemingly nobody cares. Like nothing changed. It's just life goes on. Like now you're obviously a lot closer to it, and so I'm sure that a lot did change in your view. But me being just a layman guy, I just don't. It's amazing to me. I'm like, wait, hold on a second. Does nobody care?
Yeah.
And I guess that's my first question is that your experience? That wow, I thought this was going to kind of make more of a splash than it did.
Yeah. No, I didn't think it would make more of a splash. It is this kind of slow absorption process of what does that even mean. There's a lot to talk about what you just said. So the government acknowledged that UFOs are real. They call them UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena, because UFO was in lieu of flying saucer, which was originally kind of what everybody was calling them because it was misunderstood. A guy said when he saw it, Kenneth Arnold, Mount Rainier, this was 1948, I believe, 47, I'm not good with dates. He said that it moved like if you took a saucer and skipped it on water. So the media was like, oh, flying saucer, right? But really the craft weren't shaped at all like saucers, the ones that he saw. So what happened is we go into this term of UFO because it was better. It was unidentified flying object. Okay, great. But now we know they're under the water, they're in space, this is documented. So unidentified anomalous phenomena is the new government term. So when you say the government acknowledged, that is correct. Our government has said UFOs are real. They do fly with impunity within our restricted airspace. We don't know who made them. We don't know who operates them. And they appear to be able to do things that our own weapon systems can't. Our greatest fighter planes can't. The way they maneuver and stuff. So you're right. They've said UFOs are real. We're no closer to understanding what a UFO truly is, who operates them, where they're from, what's the intent, what they represent to humankind. So the public, in general, they see that shit on the news. It's like, okay, yeah, we all kind of thought that, because we're seeing them. Thanks, government.
Right.
But nothing's really answered.
I think that from my perspective, changing the name from UFO to UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena,
Yep.
Makes a lot of sense because, why would these things even assume a physical form when they're aren't they by definition interdimensional things?
I don't know. See, that's the thing. Now we're starting to get to the areas of what is a UFO? What does this whole phenomenon represent? to humankind? Is it more than just machines or craft? So you just said interdimensional. Let me give you a few other theories people have. So
Okay.
one is like interplanetary. So you're like extraterrestrial. So these are craft coming from other solar systems from within our galaxy or maybe beyond.
Zeta Reticuli.
Sure, the famous Zeta Reticuli binary star system that Bob Lazar brought into the forefront through documents he read that he doesn't even know if it's true. Yes. So you've got that idea, extraterrestrial. Then you have this one you said, which is interdimensional, which is like so interesting because I can't even live in this dimension. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to understand what that means, but
Right.
the way it was described in Congress recently, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is like you can take a three-dimensional object, hold it up to a light, project a two-dimensional shadow against the wall, right? Kind of like Plato's cave, that allegory, whatever.
Sure.
So when you see something that might be of a higher dimension coming into existence in our dimensional reality, you're only seeing like a representation of it. It's like if you push an orange, a three-dimensional sphere through a two-dimensional plane, on that two-dimensional plane, people will just see a growing circle and then a fading circle. That's what they can perceive on that dimensional reality.
Right.
So when you say it could be, extra dimensional, that's some of the greatest scientists now who take this seriously believe it could be. So why would they even present themselves if they have this super stealth mode, these craft?
Right.
So let's go further than that.
Right. That's the question. How about this for a question? ¿Crees en los alienígenas? Ha. That means, do you believe in aliens in Spanish? And why do I know that? Because I am learning Spanish on Babbel, baby. And we've got an offer for the Wild Ride listeners, and only for the Wild Ride listeners, that you will not be able to believe. We're talking about 55% off your subscription to Babbel. And why should you want that? Because number one, you don't want to be a loser who only speaks one language. And number two, you can learn a second language in as little as 3 weeks. I mean, I'm telling you, it's like playing a video game on your phone, and you're learning the whole time. That's how I know about the alienígenas, baby. So, are you going to learn a new language or what? Because if you want to, 55% off your subscription is a majorly big deal, and you get it if you go to babbel.com/Stevo. That's BABBEL.com/Stevo. One more time, that's 55% off your subscription at babbel.com/Stevo. Now, let's get back to it. Is that, like, they don't, I would assume they don't have any need to take a physical form to be perceivable by us. So it would, like, presumably be a choice that they appear when, I would guess they don't have
Totally. So, but let's go a little further with that into other possibilities this could be. Because remember, the true architects of this secrecy, it's not your government, it's whoever the visitors are themselves, if they're in fact visitors and not from here originally, right? So whoever's operating these craft, if these are hard physical craft, they could reveal themselves. So there's an intent, but we just don't know what it is. So we've got interdimensional, extraterrestrial. Now there's one called extratemporal, which is...
And
Mind.
extraterrestrial, just by definition, means not from Earth.
Yeah, so
not
I can-
from this world, from outside of the world.
Yeah, so
from somewhere else.
Right. So the better would be non-terrestrial. Would be the way that I would say it. People say ET, extraterrestrial. Yeah, it'd be non-terrestrial, right? That'd be a good one. So you got that extra-dimensional. Then you've got this idea of extratemporal. So the way that a lot of the scientists that I talk with who've been working on this problem for government and within private industry say these are gravitationally propelled. We don't know much. We don't know anything about gravity. We can observe its effects, but we don't know what it is or how to control it other than through mass. So they say this could be extratemporal because when you shape gravity, it distorts time and space. So by definition, these craft are from another time. So you've got extratemporal, extradimensional, extraterrestrial or non-terrestrial. Then you have another theory, which is the idea that these have always been here and human beings are just kind of tuned in now to like
Sure.
a breakaway civilization or some sort of other people that have been here before. They're from here. They've been here under the oceans, whatever, in Antarctica. That's another theory people like to put forward, is that this is some sort of breakaway civilization that's been with us a long time. Then you keep going, You've got these ideas that this is some sort of simulation. So what we're seeing, what they're presenting are like craft just ahead of what we have now. So we can then have a learning process of trying to replicate as if it's a techno-terrestrial. There's another one. The idea that we're all evolving towards a technological goal with a little bit of assistance from others. And I love that one because there's a lot of evidence that UFOs are presented in their time in ways that those people can understand them. Back in the day,
When you say those people, you're not talking about humans.
no, I those people of that time. So it's like in the 1800s, a lot of UFOs.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
They looked like, so those people in the 1800s, they saw UFOs oftentimes as kind of like dirigibles, but there was none at the time, but that was technology about to come or just budding. So a lot of the UFO reports are these like Viking floatable ships with spotlights, which we had nothing like that at the time. But you got reports in multiple countries within that 4 or 5 year period where they're seeing that. And now we've got these craft that look interstellar. So you have to ask yourself, is the UFO phenomenon fucking with us? And are they presenting, whoever they are, something that we can relate to that's just outside of our grasp to help propel us forward like a control system to educate us?
Or they only tend to show up in areas where there's nuclear power and they're watching us to make sure we don't fuck up the Earth.
Okay, well, let's get there because
Ooh.
the thing is that there is an influx at all times since we began the nuclear program, since 1945 when we had the Trinity test site explosion of the first nuclear weapon. You had UFOs existed before, but there's been a great interest, a kind of increased frequency of activity surrounding our nuclear assets, including these detonizations. Now, they haven't stopped any of them, but UFOs have come into nuclear sites, turned on and off nuclear missiles. A guy that lives close to me is a friend of mine, and he was part of that. He saw them go online, offline as a red disc came in over the base. Now, George Knapp found out through documents that happened not only in the U.S. When he smuggled Russian UFO documents back, it happened also in Russia. But it's not just like, hey, here's your matches, we're going to take them from you. They turned them fucking on, too. So that's a kind of flex, if you ask me.
Okay.
So the UFO thing, and also our United States government has what they call baited UFOs before. So on multiple occasions in the transit of nuclear weapons or bringing them out places, like clockwork, these things, whatever they are, show up. That's what I'm told, and I understand the facts to be. So with that said...
Okay, but help me with the baited part.
Yeah, baited. So they were saying, to scientifically study UFOs, we have to have a repeatable process, right? You can't just be like, some guy saw one, some fighter pilot chased one.
So you're saying that the United States government, in the interest of studying UFOs, effectively said, troops, load up the nukes. We got to transport them so that it will draw the UFOs so that we can study them.
They would never tell the troops that. But,
Right.
They
Right.
put that container in the,
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, so it is understood by me, take that for what it's worth. My understanding is at this time, and I'm pretty damn confident with it, that we had opportunities to study the phenomenon scientifically by trying to set up the environment where UFOs would come. And that would be by baiting them by the movement of nuclear weaponry. And if that's true, that's pretty astounding. It does show a correlation with our nuclear weapons. I mean, look, maybe this planet is really fucking cool and we're kind of like a lower primate species and we're fucking it up. And so they're like, let's watch these fuckers before they blast something.
Right.
I
I
don't
mean, I would guess, and totally uneducated,
Me too.
that all of the just call them entities,
Yeah.
energies, like that we are just fascinating.
Oh, we have to be.
We're entertainment for them.
Hell yeah. We call them.
Yeah.
And I want to get Oliver Tree to weigh in. Thoughts? Question? What's going on?
Well, a lot of things come to mind. For one, in your research, since you are such a public figure, since you are so outgoing in the public, speaking about this on the news, have you had people from the government reach out to you about these phenomenons at all? Is this something that you feel like your life is ever in danger? Not because of
Ooh.
necessarily fans, but because of some of the information that you're bringing to light in the more mass
Yeah,
eyes.
are you posing a threat?
Am I? That's
to national security?
hope not.
But do you feel like ever that you feel maybe that there is some danger from this?
Yeah. So back to what you said real quick, which is that the term people are using is non-human intelligence, because the word alien, like anything unknown to us is alien, you know, so they call them non-human intelligence. We just had a thing in Congress and that was a good way. To your question, you know, have I ever been contacted? Dude, of course. I mean, I'm obtaining and releasing military filmed footage that are of bona fide UAP through leaks that comes to me. They have to do investigations. They have to plug leaks. That's an important job when it comes to, you know, proper transit of information. My relationship has always been really great in that no one, as a journalist, you know, has ever tried to stop the freedom of press in that way, freedom of speech, and also for public good as a journalist. There's a little bit of something called shield law, and there's other laws that say, look, if you're reporting something for public good and you can obtain anything, just don't fuck up. You know, do no harm. National security with UFOs is a real deal. The UFO topic is considered by our government at a level higher than weapons of mass destruction. That's not a throwaway statement. That is fact. I know that to be true. So here's the deal. Do no harm. I am a patriot, but you know, I'm also a little bit of a pirate, and you've seen that by when I obtain and release stuff, but I always try to do so with knowledge that it's been done wrong before, and it is not my intent to harm national security. It is not, and I think anybody's ever engaged me from any agency on that, you know, they clearly see I'm not some like crazy pirate, you know. I'm just interested in this. So just to finish your question directly, I've always been, you know, I've never been resisted, I can say that. I've been assisted, but the scary thing to me is that journalists get better briefings, more footage, better understanding of some of these UFO cases than our government representatives do. So I've not been the subject where I've been briefed. Oftentimes I have briefed on specific things, which is fucking frightening that there's so much of a problem of the transmission of this information where it should go. Because again, that's the qualification thing. I'm just a journalist that's looking at this, that there's got to be people that have a better grasp on this within our government.
But who contacts you? Like the Men in Black show up?
No.
I mean, how's that shit work? And like exchanging emails with this sensitive information, like is it encrypted? Like is there protocols you have to do?
Oh yeah. As a journalist, I'm getting and obtaining information. I just have like a couple catch-alls, so when people kind of get through to a certain point, everybody knows those catch-alls exist, completely encrypted. Everything is totally to the highest degree in quality, but I don't always know what's going to come in. People could send fucking anything, which is also kind of frightening too, right? So from the journalism side, as a journalist, I don't want to know who gave me what. I want to corroborate it. So as long as there's enough information that comes along with whatever's sent, I can corroborate it. I never want to know specifically who gave me anything. The other part of that is, how do people contact you? So this is a weird world that I'm living in, where I'm actually dealing with stuff where the Pentagon doesn't have some of the footage from their fleets that I was able to obtain. So that's an uncomfortable conversation. I'm about to go public with something, right? And I did. And then I gave it with George Knapp as journalists. We gave this information to the Pentagon. They're like, we didn't have this. So that's an awkward conversation. Then, of course, it has to be an investigation of how that stuff got out. I get that.
That's the footage from the USS... Was it Omaha?
There have been a few instances, but the USS Omaha, USS Russell, 10 of our Navy warships were swarmed by UFOs or UAP unknowns. I call them units. And they seem to appear to be trans-medium, go in and out of the water with total impunity. And a lot of times these things are fired upon, I'll say. Not necessarily with like metal bullets, but sometimes with electromagnetic weaponry on the ships.
Electromagnetic weaponry
that we have.
Yeah. So like if you have like anti-drone technology, if you're on one of these warships, you got something called the Ghostbuster. They literally say bust out the Ghostbuster, and it's this backpack, and it can shoot down a lot of the common drones. There's higher levels of electromagnetic weaponry to take down systems of objects approaching, or if there's an incursion in your space. I know of 3 that were attempted on multiple swarm incidents, but I feel like we're jumping around, so I'll just reel it back into one
Right.
point.
No, sorry, I just brought that up because that's stuff that you gave to the Pentagon that they didn't have.
Some of that footage, absolutely, they didn't have. Other parts of that footage were in what at that time was a classified document that was shown to educate the armed services about UFOs. There was a couple images from that, which I obtained, but there was other, like the radar data, stuff like that, all from the same event, like corroborative visual evidence. You got radar, thermal, infrared, deck footage, normal camera footage, all showing the same event series. So it's one of the most well-documented now, confirmed UAP or UFO events in military history, because I was able to get all of that footage and bring it together. But right back to your original question, just want to finish one thing, tie it up. Look, within the numerous intelligence agencies within the U.S., there's a high interest in this UFO thing. It's not nefarious necessarily. It's seeking quality and actionable information. It would make sense that people would try to gather that and go talk to people both overtly and covertly. So I've had both. I've experienced both, where I had to find out later the true agenda of people that inserted themselves into my lives, but then overtly just, hey, you're not in trouble, nothing's wrong, I'm from X agency, just want to talk to you. If you'll call me back about this, I'm not trying to find out sources or methods or fuck up your thing in any way, just want to get a little information if that's okay.
If you ask me, not only is it okay to get information, it is mandatory. And that is why I wear a Whoop band, because it gives me more information about my fitness, my health, than any other device known to man. That's right, it is the most sophisticated fitness tracking device known to man. It's called Whoop, WHOOP. And if you want information, baby, then get on this train, because I know everything about how I sleep, how I recover, how many calories I burn, all my exercise. I love it. And I never have to take it off, because right here in my pocket, I always have my charger, which slides right on top, and it's waterproof, baby. Dude, it never has to come off. It's always charged, and it always tells me what I need to know. And if you go to whoop.com and use the promo code STEVO, then you get 10% off your membership. Plus, when you do that, the actual band and the charger is free. Plus 10% off your membership. Get on over to whoop.com. That's WHOOP.com, and use the promo code STEVO for 10% off. Now let's get back to it.
And all of that has happened.
And this, can I ask one thing? This is a crazy, this is a big question coming out, but have aliens or UAPs or any extraterrestrial, interdimensional beings reached out to you as someone who's a spokesperson? Have you had any interaction? Have you seen a ship? Have you had any kind of personal experience? And if you don't want to answer, I understand.
No, so I'm a total open book. Like, I have to be. I feel a duty. If I withhold anything, I'd be pilloried for it. The thing is that I'm sad to report to you that I'm always the guy with my back turned in. We see something cool, they scream. I'm inside getting my night vision so everybody can see the stars better. And there's some UFO. So I was always that guy for forever, man. I never saw shit, And I kind of liked it that way. I was like, that's pretty cool, because no one's going to believe me if I see something. Luckily, not that long ago, I had a very much more credible than me friend. His name's Dave Foley. He's a comic, right? From Kids in the Hall. And he was visiting me, and he started taking the piss at me, being like, come see the UFO expert and don't see a UFO. That's pretty good. He's fucking with me. Not 45 seconds later, I say, Dave, look the fuck up. And that was the first time in my life I can say that I ever saw a craft of unknown origin that was capable of doing something unlike what I know is possible with our known understanding of physics.
When you say it's not possible by our aircraft, it's what we really mean is straight up defying the laws of physics.
It's using it's applying itself in a world of physics that we must not understand.
Right.
Is it the science hasn't caught up with the technology yet?
Yeah, so material science is our number one throttle on any reverse engineering attempts of these materials or craft. And I can explain that really deeply or simply if you want, but that's the number one thing is our material science evolution, from my understanding, has not caught up to being able to duplicate or replicate the actual physical materials enough to even begin to start.
And I would assume that it's all operating in and by laws that don't even apply to our physical science.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because it's, if I can get it, anybody can get it. And the thing is, I've tried to understand it, and what we're talking about is a UFO will appear and disappear. Okay, great. So we have stealth technology that can make that appear to be the case for us. You know, on radar or optically, we have pretty good technology. We can cloak machines. We're getting much better at it. But additionally, there's other signatures, they say, like, let's just say thermal, like where you can mask that. But also UFOs can seem, and this is the biggest one, they can appear to have zero inertial effect. So if I'm going 100 miles an hour, but then jolt to 1,000 miles an hour, my body becomes jelly on the back wall. These craft seem to be able to move at 90-degree turns that documented about 12,000 miles an hour. So not even the machine itself should be able to handle that kind of turn. So obviously there's no inertial effect. So what do we know that can cause that type of thing? Well, sure, time travel, temporal, but also we don't understand gravity. If there's a way to produce gravity, like Bob Lazar said, because right now the only thing that produces gravity is mass, is matter, right? But if we could generate gravity, you could theoretically create a gravitational field that is inert. Like it doesn't matter where you're moving through time and space, you're always in a gravitational field that is right for you. That's why they think some of these craft can move, they call it transmedium, from space through air without a sonic boom. They can move at speeds and into the sea without disturbance, without slowing down. That's transmedium. So the idea of how do they do that with physics? Some people say, well, the craft's skin, you know, it's like hydrophobic. So when you go in, it just slips in. But really what we're seeing is we're seeing objects that appear to move in ways that our physics understands. We just can't replicate gravitational fields. So they must have some way of doing it if that's the way they're doing it.
And that's what Bob Lazar was saying. They had that thing where you couldn't touch it and it kept pushing you back. That's the idea behind what that is.
Yeah, the propulsion system. So if anybody doesn't know who Bob Lazar is, you know, he's a guy that claims that he reversed engineered or tried to a UFO for the United States military. In 1989, he came forward through George Knapp. That's how you know about Area 51 and flying saucers in general. Bob said he worked on an alien spacecraft from another world. It was a saucer, and the propulsion system, the power and propulsion, was what he was tasked on examining. And he said when you turn on this gravity wave amplification machine, you couldn't bring your hands close to it. So that was an aspect of what he experienced. There were other weird things, like bringing a candle up towards it, and it was like frozen looking, just stopped, which he said made no sense because electrons should be sucked into that void. They shouldn't escape that field. So he doesn't even know. But basically, yeah, that's Bob Lazar. That is the idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if it works that way. I'd love to know.
When you said that you know, the freedom of information and the, you know, you created the impression, it seemed, that the government has like just a real you know, transparent approach to all of this.
No.
Right. Yeah. Right. So it would seem, I really liked Oliver's question about have you been in danger, and you know, because it would seem that there's potential for you to be drawing attention to information that the government is actively trying to keep covered up, and that could represent a conflict of interest that would put you in jeopardy.
I'm not the favorite person of some of these intelligence agencies or some of these groups that would have that vested interest. I'm sure Lockheed doesn't like it when I talk about that they have an actual spacecraft that they've been reverse engineering. They were given one.
Lockheed
Martin. Yeah, it's an aerospace company. But there are others, right?
Is that the one where they say they've got the biologics, the corpses of otherworldly?
Well, where they just found it in Mexico, that little 3 foot. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, that's sorry about that. Yeah,
No, this was from the Congress hearing.
So
there was this. This was the sound bite that was heard around the world, where the lady asked, "Are you in possession of any aircraft or and the guy said, well, yeah, we have the aircraft and we have biologics.
So that was my friend David Grush. So he came to me first out of concern for his safety. Okay, so you guys are talking about safety, so let's nail this one for a second, right?
Okay.
Look, I am operating within my right as a free human and a journalist, and I'm doing my best to do no harm and get information out if I find it to be credible. I'm sure there are people, I know that there are people and groups that do not like the idea of disclosure or this idea of transparency on the UAP or UFO issue. There are, of course, repercussions from people like that. There are ways in which people can make your life quite uncomfortable, but I'm either immune or ignorant, or I just don't know when I'm in trouble half the time. So I think as long as people do things legally and lawfully and they do their best, there's always going to be pushback and there's going to be ramifications anyway for other people. There have been reprisals. That's a big, so we should talk about this. That I don't want to go too weird, but that deepness of people trying to harm you. Okay, because that was said in Congress, was that David Grush personally, there were actions taken against him as a intelligence officer, but also other people. They even brought up harming people. So here's the deal.
This is people being harmed by
people that want to keep the secret.
Okay.
Within factions of agencies, right? That was the claim that was made in Congress, that this is a true fact. And he could bring forward witnesses that are both hostile and non-hostile, meaning people that want to talk and people that don't want to talk. And he's got a list. You just have to have the clearance and get a skiff. So they're working on that. So here's the deal, though. The whole thing is that there were reprisals against people like David Grush to come forward. He did it legally and lawfully. He went to the intelligence community's inspector general. The inspector general is like the cops of the intelligence community. So it's under Whistleblower Protections Act. It's a Presidential Protection Act 18 or something like, or 19. Basically, he says, this is what I know. I know that we have craft that are non-human origin. I know that we have biologics or biologicals, and I know where they are, and I know who's working on them, and I've interviewed 40 people plus that have direct hands-on experience with these materials and these programs. And he's like, put that into a whistleblower complaint. Whistleblower complaint comes back, they go, we find his shit credible and urgent. Well, why? Why did the Inspector General find it credible and urgent? Because they did their own, under oath, with polygraphs sometimes, they did investigation into the witnesses and what he found. And it was his job, by the way. He was tasked by the UAPTF, which is UAP task force, to look at over 2,000 black budget programs and try to figure out, are any of these have to do with non-human technology? And he found them.
What's a black budget program?
So like any program where they don't have to define exactly what the money's being spent on.
Okay.
And you can go to like Library of Congress if you're a total nerd like me, and you can find calculate the black budget, because it'll say black budget. And you can say how much money that we know of is being put into these programs. They never tell you what's in them. They won't tell Congress anybody. So the whole thing is we need oversight. There's tons of money being spent on this, and there are UFO programs. There are crash retrievals. They're of craft, of unknown origin, to be magnanimous, I'll say that. And there's biological aspects to these crafts, 100%. Question is, does our government have oversight from some of the corporations that have taken some of these in? So imagine in the 50s, you're like, hey, Lockheed, we got something we can't figure out. We don't know what to do. Just look at it. Try to get derivative technologies. You'll benefit from it. And Lockheed's like, oh, cool. And they take total control, and people kind of forget about it. That's the situation we're in right now. So this guy, David Grush, came forward because of the reprisals. That's why he came to me and George Knapp first. Don't report on it. He's like, I just want you to know I'm fucking scared. And so famously, he came forward to us. We kept his damn secret. We didn't even break the story. We kept his secret. And I'll tell you, it is true. He was, there's a lot of things still going on to try to shut him up.
Well, the reason I asked it too is this is something I've never spoken about, but my grandfather worked for Lockheed Martin.
Nice.
And there was a lot of things that he was unable to speak about. This was stuff that he had to take to his grave. So
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of things, and that could be something like what we're talking about now. It could be weaponry. We don't really know exactly what he did because he wasn't allowed to speak about it. But I also know someone who's very tapped into a public figure. He's like someone who works closely with the public figure who is an alien activist, spokesperson, whatever you want to call it, and Lockheed Martin people show up with this person. I can't get into specifics about saying too much of this person because it's not my business to disclose, but Lockheed Martin people show up a lot in this person's life, and it's very interesting that they're such a big part of this, but it's so like unspoken and they can't speak publicly about these things.
Yeah, that's a shame. I'm the least paranoid person I know. I probably should be more paranoid, but it's sad to hear that. So look, anything done in a classified realm, you're not supposed to talk, especially if it's a special access program, which is above classified is like, it's classified. A lot of people have top secret clearance in this country. But if it's special access, compartmentalized special access, you have to be on that program to even know that information. So when someone works at Lockheed, if they keep and maintain their clearances in order to work there, they can't talk about general stuff even. Like,
Is the Lockheed a private company?
so I don't want to just focus on them it's like an aerospace or technology, a Defense Department company. So Lockheed is its own individualized company, but its biggest contracts are with our government, right? So like our government itself doesn't like produce warplanes. We hire out with aerospace companies to do that. So you got Raytheon, Boeing, Lockheed, all these companies.
Got it.
So a lot of these companies have acquired materials, I'll say like over the decades, right? Because they want to figure out here's what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is say, we don't get what this is, but we know it can be weaponized. And we'd much rather that we weaponize this shit before anybody else, like, I don't know, say Russia, China. So initially the secrecy, like the atomic program, it's so that we can have a technological advantage in warfare. Because that's the only thing that really keeps us and distinguishes us is how big bombs we have and how we can implement them or our
Right.
tech. That's it. It's warfare. So I get it. I get why they were keeping the big secret for a long time. But cat's out of the fucking bag. And it's coming out of the bag even more now. And they see the writing on the wall. So what are they going to do? You can't admit to everything. But you can say, like the atomic program, okay, we're tinkering with the atom now. We're not going to teach you to make a bomb. But we're tinkering with the atom. Same thing with UFOs. Fess up.
All right.
And so people like what was that group that meets up? AFib? ATIB?
ATIP and AWSAP. So AWSAP was the mother program and ATIP was the auxiliary program off of AWSAP.
And these are all the heads of certain places that meet up like billionaires and they talk about UFO shit?
No. So that's different. Maybe you're talking about someone else, but so ATIP, okay.
Who owned Skinwalker Ranch?
Oh, that was Robert Bigelow.
So Robert Bigelow would meet up with a bunch of other people and they would discuss. It's a secret meeting or whatever, but
well, kind of. There's a lot in. So that was called BASS. So I'll break it down like how I understand it for like 101 style, which is that you've got people bidding on this contract to study UFOs, and Bigelow was positioned well. They retrofitted Bigelow Aerospace to be able to have the clearance, the classified, clearance of retaining materials like a spacecraft.
So like a Lockheed Martin type company.
Totally, but more nuanced in that it was really, this whole thing was about UFOs. He already had Bigelow Aerospace, put inflatables up, attach them to the International Space Station. Cool, interesting billionaire guy, right? But really what they were doing was they were like, there's $22 million. And so Senator Harry Reid put this in motion, and he got this secret black budget, $22 million, which is like not even the cost of one of our planes, but okay. And they're like, we want to do a technology UFO program. That was the core of it, right? So Bigelow said, cool, well, I will create something called BASS, Bigelow Advanced Aerospace Space Studies or something like that. We'll absorb that income, and we will get our facilities ready to receive materials, or like
materials that they find,
like a craft. That was the idea I think behind it. And we'll do all these studies, get the best scientists on this.
As a matter of fact, I have been doing quite a bit of research myself in the bedroom with my lady. And that research involves consuming a BlueChew tablet roughly 30 minutes before I get into bed with her. Why? Because it's fireworks in the sheets. And I'm not embarrassed about it. Hey man, you know what? If I'm gonna have a good time with Lux, I might as well have a really good time. And that's what BlueChew is all about, baby. And I don't know if you're aware, but the listeners of the Wild Ride podcast can get an entire month's supply of BlueChew tablets absolutely for free. All you pay is $5 for shipping if you go to BlueChew.com and use the promo code STEVO. Couldn't be more simple. You take care of your prescription right there on the website. And in moments, you've got a month's supply of BlueChew tablets on its way to your house. So go to BlueChew.com and use the promo code STEVO. Now let's get back to it.
So they did that, and it was under a program in the Defense Intelligence Agency called AWSAP. And AWSAP stands for Advanced Weapon Systems. You know what, my brain right now. It's a fucking acronym. This is the main UFO program that absorbed the $22 million, right? Then you've heard about ATIP. ATIP was reported on in the New York Times when the public kind of found out about this. So George Knapp had known about it since the beginning, but he's not the New York Times, so that Harry Reid called him and said, please don't report this. Let the New York Times break it. And he's like, all right. New York Times broke the story about ATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. There's a guy named Lou Elizondo, who you might have heard of, who is the guy that led that endeavor and that effort. They weren't the recipient of the $22 million. That was misreporting by the New York Times. But ATIP, they took the military cases and they took everything that AWSAP, when it was ending, and they took that and they ran with it. So it was very heroic to continue this study. So Lou Elizondo is a hero in my eyes, that he took this and kept going with it, you know, for our military and intelligence communities. So that's the breakdown of what you learned. 2017 changed the world. That's when that New York Times article came out that you probably heard about that shit. Black budget, whatever, New York Times, 2017. That told the world that the government was studying UFOs secretly. And before that, we were told, nothing to see here, move on. We ended studying UFOs in 1969 with Project Blue Book. There's no such thing. But then, 2017, we find out, oh yeah, they're real fucking interested.
Wow. Let me ask you about alien abductions. We've all heard about it. I was in my, I got sucked up into a saucer or whatever. Like it. We know UFOs exist. Do we know with equal certainty that these stories of people being abducted by aliens are also true?
I mean, people that claim that, if you hear the Travis Walton is a very famous story, Travis Walton story of abduction. He went missing for a number of days.
Fire in the Sky.
Yeah, Fire in the Sky is a great movie. People were going to be put in jail. They would pass polygraphs on that abduction story. So that one carries weight. And if one is true, who am I to say others are not? And I'm sure there's a lot of bullshit ones. But is that basic phenomenon real? I think we're just learning to form an alphabet here, to have a conversation about UFOs. That's down the road, in my eyes, is we have to get to consensus reality on actual reality. If UFOs are real and we accept that now, it's a different era than it was 10 years ago. If we are all there now,
right,
then we need to go into the next phase of that, which is, do we have craft from them, either crashed or gifted? Have we been exploiting them? What have we learned? Then the hard questions will come. Because if our government admits all that, people are going to ask. So can you just get swooped up? Can that happen? Why? Now, a lot of people that have had what you call abductions, there's also a lot of people that just have what you call contact, right?
Okay.
So there's a famous case, Ariel School, and two of the women now that were children at the time, Liesl and Salma, are friends of mine. I've talked with them extensively about it. They were kids, and this craft, multiple, come down, drop into this Ariel School, well documented, 60, 90 kids, I don't know, a bunch of kids saw it, drew pictures of it. John Mack from Harvard, who was head of psychiatry or something, or...
Was this in another country?
Yeah,
in Africa?
Yeah, I think it was South Africa, if I get it right.
Yeah.
Ariel School. And he went down there and with the BBC, and he interviewed all these kids. You know, head of Harvard in this field, it was a coup that he'd take this seriously, this abduction thing. So he took it seriously. He's smarter than me. He was smarter than me. You know, he's passed away. But I'd have to imagine that where there's smoke, there's fire. There's got to be something to it. It's not my field. I'm a more like nuts and bolts, like push on the government, get some answers kind of guy. But I would say there's got to be something to it. And that's mind-boggling because these kids, they weren't abducted. But what happened was the craft landed and there's this being, small, you can imagine like an alien-looking being. And its eyes, this is what every witness said, and especially my two friends, they were like, I was like, what's the best word for this? And they're like, mesmerized. I mean, what do you mean? It was like as if all the sound went away and I was being shown imagery in my mind of like how we're fucking up the earth, which is a very common thing people say when they have these close encounters. It's like a movie they're playing in their head. And they said it was like transfixed. And then as soon as I broke my gaze, all of that went away. It lost the control over me. It was communicating telepathically. You hear that all the time. Now, I've never had that experience. Sometimes I think my wife is an alien hybrid, kind of spy from another dimension, and she does mind control me. So maybe it's like that. But whatever it is, there's got to be something to it, Steve. I don't know, man. There's got to be something to it.
I just think it's interesting that we've come so far in the one area, but these situations of contact were just like...
Yeah, well, nobody owns the UFO. Like, it's very democratic. You know, it's like...
Right.
It's like it happens to everybody in every field. And I think once you, like, see one or something, you're like, okay, I know that shit's real. You get kind of like the bug.
Right.
For some people. I don't know. Nobody owns this thing. I think that there is contact, it appears, with individuals more than even governments. And if that's the case, I don't know what's going on.
One question in the context of interdimensional and these different ideas that maybe we can't perceive them in this dimension and they're in another dimension. Yeah. I've known multiple people who have had encounters with other species, UAPs, whatever you want to refer to them as, through the dream state. And I wanted to ask you about, for one, also to confirm these people also were spoken through telepathically, so they didn't speak, but they were able to communicate. And the same message, in one of the instances, was spreading the same message of, hey, you guys are damaging this entire planet. And that sends a ripple effect. You know, one thing gets blown up, it changes and it has a ricochet effect onto the next things around it. But I wanted to ask you about the dream state, and if you've heard many instances where people are reached through the dream state, and if you think that maybe they're not physically visible, or, you know, maybe they're not unveiling themselves in this dimension by choice, or maybe they don't even have the skills, and if it's in the dream state, and if you think, not to get too many questions at once, but maybe that's a time where we're not our guards down in the dream state, maybe they're easier to reach out to us, where it's not as, we're not going to have a crazy freak out, or if they can't even maybe reach us in some cases in this dimension.
Yeah, I mean, your guess is as good as mine, unfortunately, when it comes to that. So I have made myself available to hear everybody's account. Now, what I can do with that, if it's actionable for me, if it's something that is, you know, profoundly personal, I'd like to hear it, because I feel like censoring information before it comes to me. So I'm very open to hearing it. I've heard every story you can imagine when it comes to abductions, when it comes to close encounters, when it's military personnel, when it's whistleblower. Like, I've heard it all, man. The thing is, or maybe I haven't. Let's see what I hear next, right? Nothing will shock me. But there are things that continue to repeat amongst people that don't know each other. And that's where it gets really kind of haunting to me. Not even in the typical UFO zeitgeist, just little details that continuously are repeated. And I asked to record those conversations. I can use, like, you know, AI word search, and I can find now, you know, a decade of interviews where people are repeating things. And they don't know each other, and it's not popular stuff, just little things. So I don't know if it's dream state. Some people say on, like, DMT they can see some aliens. I don't know. But you don't need to be asleep or high to see this UFO thing. I think you just need to look up.
But that may be where you're in between states. That could be a place where they can reach you.
I'm with you, bro.
Yeah, I had a friend who was really big into DMT, and he had an instance where, because a lot of people, they meet entities. It might not be referred to as aliens, but they meet other beings, which
I've heard it.
You know,
yeah.
there's something that I think is interesting we could talk about too is just the idea of aliens versus ghosts versus angels. You know, people
Right.
are talking about entities, not even necessarily knowing what they are, but that energy that maybe is in an in-between realm. I've experimented with DMT a lot of times, never experienced beings, but it's a very common thing. But this person was actually he said it was what he interpreted as an alien actually like doing some form of surgery. He said it
yeah, I've
tickled
heard about
him though, and he didn't feel threatened or anything. He was just laughing by it, but it wasn't like he felt like he was abducted, but he felt like someone there was working on him. That's like
Yeah.
another conversation, but
I've heard that a lot.
I think that when you talk about being contacted in a dream state, like actual like dreaming, I think that suggestion lends more credibility to dreaming than it really deserves.
Well,
Not that we don't dream, but just my experience of dreaming is just all such absurd nonsense that
Right.
it just doesn't, you know.
well,
Yeah.
to answer that one thing, because I know someone who his wife doesn't believe in aliens, and he does, and he said that in the instance where the time he met them and they came to visit him after he had disclosed a bunch of information, his wife basically was saying, "Hey, I had a dream last night where a bunch of these tall gray aliens came to the house," and he didn't perceive it as a dream, from what I understand, but she did. And so I just think that's interesting because it's not like, oh, I had a dream. It's like two people had the same dream.
Right, right.
Have you guys ever had like a dream or like some information that you just knew that you had no conventional way of knowing it and it ended up being true?
Probably. You mean like intuition?
I don't know what I mean. Just that if we have received information in some way that we didn't know how, there's no logical way that we know, like no one told you it or wrote it down, it wasn't
Right.
even in the air, then somehow there's information that gets into us from somewhere else.
It's like 100 Monkeys theory.
Sure, that book.
I believe in that. I don't know that I've had personal experience. My dad and my former stepmom went to a medium, like a psychic. The psychic said that the spirit of my dad's first wife, which is my mother, is restless because her ashes have not been scattered.
Whoa.
Like they and literally, my mom had been passed, was cremated. My sister had this urn with the ashes, like literally on the top shelf inside her closet, and we didn't, just hadn't thought of anything to do with it, and like that's pretty.
Yeah.
Pretty majorly specific that like the my mom's spirit like what needed to be set free, like you need to do the ashes.
So it's a good example, right? So here's my point. Now, we could argue, okay, if you got ashes and, there's 50-50 chance you scattered them or not, but it's still...
Nobody...
That she's even cremated. Yeah, I mean, it's like... So here's the deal. That is something we'll have to choose to have to believe now, that information can kind of go into a human consciousness without traditional, meaning we don't know yet how it works. It appears the UFO thing and information, to most people that experience that, it's a non-traditional kind of communication. So there's just so much we don't know. We've been learning over and over for the decades that consciousness does play a role with physical matter, right? That's something that we've all kind of been accustomed to saying now. But how fucking weird is that? That like there's a state of matter can be altered by the observer if there's consciousness observing it. Mm-hmm. This goes back to the double slit experiment. Everybody knows this, right? But have we absorbed this? Like, this is fucking crazy. This means that consciousness somehow dictates the result of physical reality. So the world is so...
Biocentrism.
What is that? Tell me.
This is the idea that that consciousness like creates the universe, not like the other way around.
The brain, yeah.
Right.
So, well, look, dude, I don't know any of these answers, but what it is, it dawns on me that we are so, what's the word, like hubristic, like we're just so, our hubris gets in the way, so we're like, well, that can't be true because,
Right.
and that you look like a fool if you talk about that, so don't look
Right.
like a fool. No one wants to look like a fool. Look, man, we're fucking shooting our own selves in the foot with that kind of thing. Everything should be on the table as we kind of look into this new realm, right? So this idea that UFOs and like some people, I remember Carl Jung wrote this book about how he thought UFOs were a physical manifestation of human consciousness. Now talk about hubris, first of all. That's
Right.
fucking crazy. I think he changed his mind later, but whatever this is, this UFO thing, there seems to be a physical, mechanical aspect to it that really excites our military for reverse engineering. But there also seems to be this other realm when it comes to the UFO experience that has more to do with human interaction. We're the common denominator, but consciousness, right? That's when you get into all the weird shit that's associated with UFOs. So oftentimes when someone says I had a close encounter, that's the only part they feel comfortable telling you. But there's like weirder shit that happened that they don't freely admit to. Anybody could say I saw a UFO now. You could say that. People are not going to shame you. But you start saying other stuff, it just gets a little weird.
I had a lot of experiences with psychosis from when I was active in drug addiction. And I've been clean and sober for 15 years now, and still, like, and at no point since I had these experiences have I ever wavered in that, like, all of this stuff that I experienced was totally real. And by totally real, I think to describe it, I arrived at the conclusion that by piling these substances into my body, all of these chemicals, and that I was effectively eroding what I would call the barriers between, like, our sort of 3D compartment and other, which is a very dangerous thing to do through ingestion of substances, because by eroding the barriers you open yourself up to all forms of energies, low, high. So I was welcoming in, like, angels and demons is how I would refer to it.
Yeah.
Like, super low. So it's a dangerous, kind of a scary thing, psychosis, because you're inviting in, like, all of this low level frequency, like, demon shit. And but also in came angels, and like there was just a lot of fascinating experiences I had. I would classify it as demons that I called trickster spirits, because they would just entertain the shit out of me. Like, just like my whole apartment would turn into this crazy light show, and like everything was
How long would this go on for?
I would have episodes that would last for a number of hours. I would be in this. And different things would happen for moments.
Yeah.
Like there was this skateboard that I had drilled to the wall, and to the skateboard I had drilled the base of a globe, like an atlas, like a globe that would sit on a desk. So it was protruding sideways out of the wall over the door, and I sat there and I watched my own face, like as if the globe was like, it was like the liquid Terminator. My own face came pushing through this globe, and it was like I watched it, and then the globe itself with my face protruding out of it just started, like, it was like head banging, like, And I remember thinking, like, dude, this is so crazy, like, and like this can't be real, and I'm like, I'm still seeing it. Like, I had that moment to be like, this can't be real. It's still there. Like, and then like another beat, like, and it's still happening. Like, this is insane.
What do you think that is? That's a different dimension, or what?
I mean, my take on it was that it was just heavy demon stuff, because when the chair that I was in just erupted into flames, and I was just like, wow, I'm sitting in a chair that's completely on fire. I'm totally engulfed in flames, but it's not hurting me. It's just like, wow, cool. Like, I'm just sitting in this huge
You got
fire.
You got your money's worth on the drugs.
Yeah, like there were
Stoked.
there were all like the curtains opening and closing while these lights are going off, and like just all these different like crazy experiences I had, and my only response to it all was just to try to keep shoveling more drugs into my body to keep these things happening. And so that's like, that's scary demon shit, you know?
So your idea there when you first started talking about that barrier, so if the brain is more of like a receiver, right,
rather than a transmitter.
There we go. So like maybe that is the ultimate thing that we're going to learn, is that it is more of a receiver, and there are certain things that can erode that barrier that make it hard to function in like normal reality, but there are ways in which you can permeate that and have those experiences if they're necessary. I don't know. I like this, like, I don't know. This reality is pretty great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, man.
Are there things that you know that you can't say that if we knew, it would just blow our fucking minds?
You know, whenever that question gets asked, like, of course, there's a lot of stuff that I know that people have told me in confidence. I'm not trying to hold anything back. Would it blow your minds? Like, I don't know, would like a great UFO photo that the world hasn't seen blow your mind? Probably not. It's like another piece. Like, and also, what is it when someone tells you something? I tell you something, so what? Like, you know, that wasn't earned. It's just some weirdo telling you something. So what I think is that, of course, I have to work in confidence. I believe a lot of the information that I have to be true, that is not proper to put out yet until people allow that information. But it's nothing that is going to change anybody's dynamic right now. I've told you the basics. Our government knows that UFOs are real, that they're not from here, whatever that means. We have craft. We have physical machines. We've been reverse engineering them in secret for a long time, and that secrecy continues to this day. Every inch we're earning on this battlefield of transparency is an inch or a millimeter that people have fought for. There's nobody saying, oh, it's time for a disclosure, a big government operation. Let's tell them some crazy UFO stuff to distract them. That's the stupidest fucking idea in the world. That's, if you really think about it, that's not what's happening. That's what I can tell you. Those big things are true. There's some sort of intelligence that appears not to be human, and it's been engaging humanity since the beginning of recorded human history before, that we have physical artifacts, machines, and even biologics. And your government has lied to you, come and clean a little bit, but it's going to continue to lie to you if you let it slide. That's what I know.
The idea that there are craft and then there's biologics seems a little bit off to me, where what I would just guess to be more accurate is that the line between the biologic and the craft is pretty blurry. Like, is it not a theory that the craft itself is some kind of a biology?
For sure, man. So there's a few nuances to that. So some people say, like the most common report I get from a military person that doesn't want to be known, they had a close encounter, is that if I hear this another time, if I got a nickel every time I heard this, I'd be rich, right? I know it sounds weird. I'm an engineer. I know it sounds weird. I don't have any other words to describe it. The skin of the craft seemed intelligent. Like there was an intelligence. It seemed alive. And it kills them to say that, because there's like a lot of engineers, right?
Right.
So there's the idea that the actual machines themselves are so integrated that it is, in a sense, a biology, right? How we understand it, but it's still a craft that carries things. Then you have the idea of biologics being just pilots.
Right.
So you've got craft that appear, the most common UFO is a silver sphere, sometimes cubes, flying cubes with spherical auras, right?
Yeah.
Black cubes?
Yeah, so that's very common. A lot of pilots have conveyed that publicly and privately to people, that they see cubes. By the way, I have articles back in the 60s. Flying cubes goes back all the way as far as UFOs. This is one of the most common shapes, is a flying cube. You can see historical documents with this. The pilot, both military and commercial, saw a flying cube with a spherical aura. You know, that's way back. So these have been around for a long ass time, whoever's tech this is. So some UFOs appear to be piloted by an artificial intelligence, so like a drone, right? Other UFOs seem to carry occupants, like a few, right? Those occupants we would call biologics, or biologics, but they could very easily be some sort of cybernetic organism with printed flesh that operate as an autonomous kind of AI being,
Yeah.
Then you
it
got
could
the
also
weirdest-
be just a decoy to fuck with us. They
It
could be like, ha ha, these stupid shits.
Dude, if you're gonna send someone to go study an ant, you're gonna make a badass animatronic ant that kind of puts off the right pheromones. Looks kind of like them, but they're like, "What's up with this fucker? He's a little weird," but blend in, no problem. So you can imagine, sometimes you feed like animals in the wild with a puppet of that animal. You could see that being part of the case. So when you talk about biologics, maybe there are some sort of non-terrestrial things in our upper atmosphere that are biological, right? Maybe that's what they mean by that. So pilots of craft, cybernetic, drone type things, species from other places we don't know. I don't know.
What is that thing that hangs out by the USS space station, the Wanamana, or it's you know what I'm talking about? It's like a cigar-shaped rock that's just been there forever.
No, that came in to orbit and then took off, and that was Oumuamua.
Oumuamua.
Yeah, and that's Dr. Harvey Loeb.
They figured out what it was?
No, there's a lot of debate what that was, because I'm not a scientist, so I might fuck this up, but this thing came from deep space, kind of made this roundabout around the gravitation of Earth. However, it was a weird trajectory for it, and so at first they were like, oh, that's propulsion. That thing came from deep space, came out, propelled off. Then some scientists say, well, it was expressing gas probably, from the heating getting close to the sun. That's why it changed direction, of course. Then they said, well, we can't see that. So they're like, it must have been coming from the inside core of this piece of rock. So they got all these mental loops they go through. I don't know. Go ask Harvey Loeb at Harvard. He'll probably give you his definitive answer on what Oumuamua was. It was just an object from another outside of our solar system that came in.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I think that's interesting, based on talking about these different types of crafts and different variations, it's like, just like here on Earth we have so many different you have different races, different types, and then people are like, oh, aliens are this, like we're aliens to them essentially. We're just from another place. When they come to see us, we're the aliens to them. What I think is interesting is thinking about people have this misconception maybe where they're like, oh, these aliens are really good, or they're actually really bad. More on the bad side is I think what people tend to think, or they're scared because we're scared of what we don't know. But it's just like someone here. It's like some people have good intentions, some people have bad intentions. Obviously, if we're likely to blow up other people, the message of them coming to tell us, hey, you guys probably need to just protect yourself or be conscious of what you're about, the chain reaction you'll cause. But I think that's something that when you were talking about that, I feel like there's maybe something that's important to be spoken about, is just, there could be pretty much endless amounts of different races and different types, and some could have these very negative intentions and be kind of like using their influence to maybe be like, oh, if this does blow up, then it affects our neighbors, which they don't like, or whatever their agenda is. Just like humans have their agenda and they're trying to get someone to do something, whether that's for self-gain or maybe they want to protect it for their own self-preservation. But I think it's an interesting concept of
angels and demons, bro.
Yeah, and
there's all nature of different energies, man.
And I think it's interesting talking about religion and the different angels that have been seen, or circles in the sky and these different things, and kind of just the idea that maybe this has been going on for so long, and that was our way of perceiving it, is kind of piecing it into the way we could understand it into words, which there's not enough words to describe most of things in the world.
Yeah. So a couple of things in what you said. There's three that we should talk about. So one is that there's a lot of variety of these UFOs or craft. The second is, back in the religious things, what people were seeing, and also is what's the intent, good or bad. Those are three things we should probably talk about. So shapes of craft. I can tell you from getting reports, just thousands in a month, thousands. And some people just directly just want me to know, no one else to know. Fine. The shapes of these craft are dude, there's no consistency. Like, of course, you got the spheres and you have the cigar shape. You have these kind of fundamental shapes. But when people have close encounters and they're telling you what they saw, they don't want other people to know. I mean, this shit's not aerodynamic. You could choose almost any form. These machines are so bizarre. Some are huge, the size of a football field or larger. Of course, some are delta shaped, spheres, all that, cubes, but there's odd shapes. It's like as if these craft, it's like as if they come from tons of places. There's not one repeatable version of a craft that's very common.
And aren't there just orbs, just light?
Sure.
Triangles.
Okay. I've got I think only one more question that I really feel that I need to ask, and that is, what's up with Stonehenge? Are we anywhere closer to like nailing it down that it was aliens who built Stonehenge because it just wasn't possible for people to lift those rocks? And I'm going to tag on to that as part of the same question, what's up with the pyramids?
Yeah, like, so I'm going to be so disappointing in that there's people that know a lot more about that than I do. I've been so kind of hyper-focused and, like, shaking the trees of government, making sure people know about this stuff. What I will say is that I think human beings have this incredible adaptability and ingenuity, and just because we don't see evidence for how something was done, it doesn't mean that we might have lost that technology at some point. We might have had a sophisticated society to some degree, and we lost knowledge. It takes one generation, if it's not written down, to lose information, right? Now, I do agree with you. Some of that shit is fucking wild. Like, we are discovering whole pyramid complexes underneath using LiDAR. You hear about that? So under jungles, we'll go up in planes and shoot down like satellite imagery and use LiDAR, lasers, and we're mapping out whole temples and cities. And they're like, yeah, don't tell anybody because they're going to go loot that shit, keep it. So it's a kind of this hidden secret that there's all these complexes of stone structures from other cultures that don't make sense to us. That shit is fascinating. I don't know if you need aliens to do that. However, there are people that think, how do you get these stone blocks that look like they're molded and lifted? Do you use sound to lift them? You can't put a razor blade between them? I would like to know, but I don't know. I don't know the answers.
Yeah, I was reading that like the Mayan temples, the Aztec temples, like everybody thinks that the Mayans and the Aztecs built those. Like they showed up there and they started a civilization around that. Those were already there.
Oh, yeah. And we hear that all the time. So, okay, outside of my scope, but I'll try to give it to you anyway. It's a place called Pumapunku, and a lot of alien UFO people like talking about it because they're these megalithic stones that have this precise carving out of the stones. Now, the stones, if I understand the story, they're made of diorite. There's two things that can cut diorite: laser beams and diamond edge tools. They had chicken bones and copper, and they always said, we didn't make these. They were here, we inherited them, and nobody believed them because, well, you must have made them because that's our history. Turns out they didn't make them, and they don't know how these were carved. Like three-dimensional cutouts in diorite stone that is like absolutely precise. So if you look that up, Pumapunku, that kind of will spin your head a little bit, which is like, what technology other than chicken bones and copper were used to do that? And that's where you can have your aliens, because I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, or that rock in Saudi Arabia that's just cut perfectly in half. It's just paper thin but perfectly cut.
Sounds like way better examples than Stonehenge and the pyramids.
No, but you grew up in England, right? So like Stonehenge is a mystery, bro. Like I don't know. I really don't know much about it. But the thing is, there's so much we don't know just about our human past that we're in this new era of like saying, hey, we might be part of a greater intergalactic understanding of what it means to be human.
I mean, I think that is, I don't want to say obvious, but I think that makes perfect sense to me. The idea, I've heard it said, and I think this is credible, that there is so much, like, just irrefutable evidence of reincarnation that it is baffling that anybody could still, like, maintain skepticism on the subject. Like, there's just too many examples, like you said, of information being disseminated, whatever, like
non-traditional
imparted.
teams imparted,
right? Yeah. Like you got little kids, 2 years old, saying, "Oh yeah, like when I was the president of this company." Or something,
yeah, the boy that was born before is a great documentary on one of these cases.
Right.
Yeah. That.
And there are endless examples
yes.
of children knowing things, recognizing people, like having information that they just could not possibly have. That it's like, okay, let's just let's just lock this in. Let's just lock this in and say reincarnation's real. I think that the same kind of philosophy, it's got to apply to this. How to chicken bones and copper, like that to me sounds like a very credible example of, like, the equivalent of a little kid knowing precisely information about a past life, where it's like, okay, this kid is reincarnated that person. Like, you got chicken bones and copper, and they're cutting things that only lasers and diamonds can cut.
So the thing was that they didn't cut it, though. That's the thing. Like, it was there before them. So the idea. So you're talking about.
Right. So the existence of something that could not exist.
Right. So you're talking about, and it fascinates me, continuity of consciousness. This idea that maybe this idea of reincarnation has been well studied. There's a university that has one of the longest studies on this. They studied children. They're trying to see like what they would say about their past, then they'd go resolve those cases and find out. And weird things when I've read about it, which is like the kids would have like birthmarks that associated with the injuries they had in that.
Right.
So it's so funny. It kind of comes full circle in that this idea of life, what happens when you die, life after death, and this interest in like the UFO topic, that's like that guy Bigelow was really interested in it, the guy that owns Skinwalker Ranch. So he's actually started something called BIX, which is like it's a whole study on the continuity of consciousness now, because these big questions, they excite people, you know. And if if you're a billionaire and you can just kind of study the cool shit, that's what people do. But I don't know. I am so fascinated with this life. I'm so fascinated with the unanswered questions. I have disdain for when we think we can just put something in a box and say, oh, we figured it out, without actually looking at it. That's how I got started in the UFO thing. Was I was very, it was very dismissive. People were very dismissive. Scientists were, and I was like, what the fuck? You should be salivating over the idea of what you can study. So I don't know, man. This idea of continuity of consciousness, that'd be cool.
I think that the whole question of what happens like after you die, like to me is so silly, and I love that you said it, that our brains are receivers, not transmitters. I've had this conversation with a number of people, like in general, and on this podcast specifically, but the idea that our brain generates consciousness, that it's a transmitter, that consciousness originates and comes from the brain, would like to believe that would be to believe that when the brain dies that there's nothing left. But if you just shift your perspective on that and say, okay, maybe the brain is not a generator of consciousness, but rather it is a receiver of consciousness. Now we're looking at the brain as like a radio that's picking up a signal. And this is a metaphor, an analogy that anybody can grab onto, that if you take a radio and smash it, obliterate it with a sledgehammer, you've killed the radio, but you've done absolutely nothing whatsoever to affect the signal that radio was picking up.
Right.
And right there in that simple analogy, that simple metaphor, like you can completely grasp the idea that death isn't real, you know, like the idea of a soul. And, you know, like it seems silly to me that people are so hung up on the idea that, oh, is there life after you die? It's like, dude, come on, bro.
I do wonder, in how you're describing, I'm imagining this smashing the radio. I do wonder if we think about it this way. What if that, consciousness is the medium through which your brain receives information, but also like if you have a microphone, it absolutely influences the physical world. We see that in what we're talking about before, the quantum physics and the idea. So if that is true, maybe we're both. Maybe the brain is both a receiver and a transmitter, but the space in which that occurs, that is consciousness, right? That is the idea, maybe.
And when you get collective consciousness, everybody put together, then now we're all in agreement that we're seeing the same thing. Now you've got immutable laws of science which apply in every situation, because the collective consciousness has generated this illusion of reality, and that's why when you ask the question, like, what are the odds that a universe so expansive, it goes on and on forever and ever and ever, yet somehow there's only this like immeasurably like minuscule, like tiny little speck in it that's able to like foster life. Like, what are the odds that just only life can exist in this one thing in the middle of this expansive universe that goes on and on forever? Like, that doesn't seem probable. And then if you flip that on its head, look at it the other way, change your perspective. But what are the what is it not more likely that our consciousness is as tiny as that little dot, able to project this?
Wow, yeah.
You know, like that the universe is constructed by consciousness.
Yeah, it's a great. Yeah, I don't. It's like worse than the chicken or the egg. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever really be able to figure that out. But it's a look, man. The expanse of the universe, like how big, unimaginably big. They say it's statistically improbable that we're the only life. But I agreed with what you said earlier. We must be fucking fascinating at this stage of our development. The toys we got, the stupid things we do. I do watch that show.
Right.
I mean, it's awesome. Welcome to Planet Earth, the greatest show in the solar system. I'm sure of that much.
We're like the Kardashians of the universe.
That's epic. You know?
Yeah,
Who's
for
getting
sure.
the royalties though? For who's watching that? Who's watching this, man?
Yeah, who knows? So you have a YouTube channel, Weaponized.
Yes, yeah. It's just my personal YouTube channel at Jeremy Corbell, but we have a show, George Knapp and I have a show together. So George Knapp is a gangster, old school investigative journalist about this UFO topic. He was on it before anybody. You know, he brought Bob Lazar forward. So luckily I get to kind of sit with him and have our private conversations and investigations, and sometimes with guests, public, and it's really fucking fun. So that is the YouTube channel. And you can watch the show Weaponized on podcasts and stuff.
You can have Tom DeLonge on.
Tom's a good friend of George's and also mine. I've known him for a while. Sure. I mean, I don't know. We don't even know what we're doing next week, to be honest with you. You know? So it's like, it's just a matter of like finding the time for everybody. But who is next? I don't know. But George and I will be there.
I love it.
Dude,
I love it.
I love it. It's such fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
And I love your just your intoxicating curiosity. It's you know, it's
Contagious.
Okay.
I love it.
You're clearly just so jazzed on being alive and just the wonder and the curiosity of the universe, and it's inspiring, man.
Thanks, but I appreciate that. You know, the thing is I think when you in life, I get excited about coffee. You know, I get excited about, you know, the little things. It's like, this is just happens to be a big question, and I feel like it's uncharted territory. And when in our lives can we really be like topographers? We're creating a map of something. There's so much we know, but it's the things we don't that really excite me. So I think that's what draws me. It's the UFOs is like, it's a thing, but it's really the fact that not only do we not know, but we're like resisting studying it. So that's why I'm most excited about it. You know?
Right. Yeah, I love it, man. I hope that you don't step on any toes and have anybody coming after you. You know, Oliver's obviously worried about your safety.
I'm worried about you, bro.
Seems worried.
Be careful.
No, I'm good, man. I'm directed and protected and too stupid to know when I'm in danger, I found out. So we're good.
Yeah, I think we have that in common, man.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But yeah, hey, man, thank you so
thanks,
much, brother. Yeah, for
thank
sure.
you.
Yeah, that was awesome.
All right, bro. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We always ask people, I don't think there's anything that we could possibly be concerned about. We always say to guests after we're done, like, if there's anything that you're
I
not
appreciate that.
comfortable
I'm
with,
good, brother. Yeah.
Like,
all good. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that was I had to pee so bad that whole time.
Oh, no.
But I was just fascinated.
Yeah.
There you have it, baby. Do you feel enlightened, or do you feel scared? Well, I'll tell you how I feel. I feel full of gratitude to be talking to anybody at the end of this episode, and I know that there's a bunch of you, and I love you. I love you so much. And what can I share with you? In this room, before we did these ad reads, we mapped out the rest of the year, and it's gonna be fucking crazy. Just putting that out there, it's gonna be fucking crazy. The end of this year's gonna end with a bang. Some bazoombas.